Welcome. Can you introduce yourself a little?
Yes. So my name is Deidra Duncan. I'm the author of Lovesick. I'm also an obstetrician and OBGYN in Florida. So this book I kind of decided to write after my training because the training in, the United States is extremely malignant and toxic. And I basically just started this as therapy and outpoured this book. So yeah, that's where I am.
Maybe the first question, did you also find the love of your life or
No, I was already married when I started residency.
it's better, right?
Yeah, the love story is 100% fiction, but it would be nice if it was true.
So you already said like that's your more like a therapy to you and that the love story is fiction. So
Yes.
what is true about also the journey that our protagonists go through and what was the therapy part for you?
Just getting it out there and basically letting people know this is what happens. Because a lot of the stories about medical training are glamorized. They make it yeah, they talk about the long hours and stuff, but they don't talk about how they grind you down and they treat you so bad, and they don't talk about any of the bad things. And so I wanted a story that was no, this is what it's really like. So that was my personal journey. And then the story itself, I would say that the majority of it is based in some truth. Like it didn't all happen to one person, right? But it all happened, if that makes sense. The misogyny that she experiences, the rumors that were going on about her, the funny patient encounters, I don't know, the attendings that she had, the lack of supervision, all of that. I mean, all of that was real. It just didn't happen all to one person.
Did you have any kind of counseling or someone you can talk about, especially for all the misogyny parts? I think that's a really, unfortunately, real topic. Was there anyone you could talk about to? Was there any institution that did something?
Not that I know of. There might have been one that existed. So there's kind of this I don't there's this rhetoric that's been going on for a lot of years about how residents aren't treated well and we should do better. But instead of actually doing better, they just institute these mandatory programs that take up more of our time. So we had these wellness programs and that we were required to do, and it made me less well because I was so annoyed at having to do these extracurricular wellness things, and it wasn't helpful at all. All it did was made us angry. And so instead of actually improving the working environment or improving the way that we're treated or any of it, they just made us do more stuff and basically told us they blamed a lot of it on us too. It was you should be more resilient. A sort of instead of we're not doing this right, it was you're not doing this right. So I wouldn't say we had any help. We just had each other and alcohol.
Oh, damn. But as you said, like, you had each other and also the characters kind of have each other. Not to spoil
Yes.
anything. Would you say, like, the friendship that is inside here and also, as you said, the drinking is really real?
Yes. Yes. I drank more in residency than I've ever drank in my whole life. But yes, so I would say the friendships that I made in residency are some of my best friendships. We still talk every day. And so it's kind of like a forged in the trenches kind of friendship. And no one else can really understand the things that you've gone through. Even your spouse and people who've been there through all of it, they don't really get what it was like, but those people do. And so it's impossible to get rid of those people. I mean, they're invaluable.
There's something that I really liked about the book also is that the time frame is years. It's not like the typical, oh, everything happened in 1 week or a month or something, but it's
Yeah.
years because they actually go through every step of this residency. So was this something that was important to you? And how did you measure the time, especially for the fictional love story in there?
So one of the things I really wanted to get across was that there were times where we would never even see each other. If I was on nights and someone else was on days at another hospital, we literally wouldn't see each other that entire month. So it's everything is measured in months when you're in residency. The rotation that you are on that month determines what your life is going to be like. And
Mm.
so if you're on the busier months or you're like nights is very isolating because everyone is asleep while you're awake. And the only other person who is awake is the person who's on nights at the other hospital. So you can only just like text them. You can't see them.
Mm.
And like, you're going to bed when everyone else is getting up and doing everything. And it's very isolating. And so, and when you're a second year, especially, you have the most months of nights. So I think we had 5 months of nights in our second year. And so there were times where you just weren't seeing any of your friends. And so it was important for me for there to be these like big jumps in time before they would have another interaction because that was true to how residency really was. It wasn't like in Grey's Anatomy where they're just like hanging out all the time. There were times where you legit would not see people. And so there were some people who hated that. They were like, this isn't realistic. I was like, actually, this is the most realistic because, you can't, falling in love in residency is nearly impossible. It's like falling in love in a vacuum, but you're actually sucked to either side. I don't know. Like the fact that this
Yeah,
happened
right.
is very much fiction,
Yeah. But like for the love story, was there some inspiration? How did you come up with the characters for the two main protagonists? Because they're really specific types of people.
They are. I don't know, honestly. I mean, so my friend actually from residency, he still works at the hospital where we trained. And he recently told me that the nurses at the hospital have been trying to figure out who is who in my book. And he actually sent me a screenshot of like who they thought all of them were. And that almost all of them were wrong. I was like, there were only 3 of them that were so obvious, and those were the ones that they got right. And
Oh.
they didn't know who Julian was. They said, "Grace has Deidra vibes." And I was like, "Literally, I am not Grace at all." Like, I have a temper. I was just angry the whole time. Like, I was like, "Grace is sweet and she's like nice to people." I was like, "This is not me. I'm sorry. I'm not a nice person." So like, I thought that was really funny. I think they were trying to fit someone in there. But the truth is, like, Grace and Julian are just like figments. Like, these are people that I truly just made up out of my head. And of course, they have certain qualities that either I have or that people who are close to me have. Like, my husband has really bad ADHD and he's never been treated for it. He's never actually been diagnosed, but it's like so clear to me that he has ADHD. And so that, like, also Julian has his taste in music and like that kind of stuff. And then Grace, her social anxiety is pulled from like me, but my sister as well. Like she has really bad. And even my daughter, like to see her struggling with her social anxiety, like that anxiety before a party and stuff, like that's 100% me. But then there's like stuff like she loved to study and studying was the worst. Like I hated it so much. I pulled that more from like Hermione than anyone. So, like, there are and then, like, her sexual trauma, I just made up because that was, like, part of her character arc.
Hmm.
So, that was just, there are parts of all of these characters that I pulled from real people, but I also, like, made stuff fit into the story as well.
Would you say the therapy worked? Like when the book was done, would you say you're over it? Or did it make it worse because you had to
I
go
don't
through all
know.
of that again?
The thing is, like, what's in the book is only like 10% of what actually happened. And so it's like sometimes I go back and I think about it and I get mad all over again. And then there are some people that I think about and I'm like, I wish bad things on you. And I don't care that that makes me have bad karma, stuff like that. I think what's worked the most is just time and distance, like just not being around it anymore. Though sometimes, like, because where I did residency is where I grew up. And so, like, my family still lives there. So we'll go back there. And if I drive past the hospital, I, like, get all
No.
this, like, bad juju vibes. I'm like, go away." So, yeah, I don't know, maybe, but more time, I think.
But you like your job? I mean, you're still working as a doctor.
Yes.
Pulled through.
I There's a very big difference between being a medical resident and being an attending physician. Those 2 jobs are not the same. They should be, but they are not. When you're a resident, you're the bottom of the totem pole. Like, you're below even, like, I don't know, the flowers in the garden. Like,
Oh God.
you're no one, you're nothing, and everyone thinks you're stupid, and they treat you that way. And so coming to a place that had a better environment, like, where I work now, the relationship between the doctors and the nurses is fantastic. Like, we are very collaborative and, we talk collegially and we're friends. And that is a much better environment than where I trained, where the nurses were essentially told by the hospitalist staff that we were idiots, they shouldn't listen to us, and they should do whatever they wanted to do. Like, I mean, that's kind of how it felt. Like, that we were not, they kept saying that we weren't trained well and we didn't know what we were talking about and like all of these things. And so it was just such a bad environment to be in. And now I'm in like the complete opposite environment and it's magical.
So cute. But how come you picked like OBGYN? Because I mean it's we are faced with the problems every day and then make it your job to be confronted with others' problems
Yeah.
in the same way.
We joke that it's called gynecology because it's, mostly psychiatry.
Yeah.
No, so when you're a third year medical student, you have to go through all these different rotations. And so, like, you have to be exposed to family medicine and internal medicine and specialists like cardiology, like all of those things. You do surgery, emergency medicine, pediatrics, all of these things. And so you get to be exposed to these different specialties. So you can kind of get a feel of what you like and don't like. And, there were some that were obvious, like, no, this is the worst. And there were some that was like, oh, I could probably do this. And then when I did my OBGYN residency, I was like, this is going to be hard, but this is really the only thing that fits. Like, nothing else felt right, I
Hmm.
guess. And so when I did it, and I knew, like, they say OBGYN has the worst treatment, the worst call, the most expensive malpractice insurance. Like, our specialty is terrible. I don't know why anybody would go into it, but there was nothing else I wanted to do. And so I did.
And it's also something that I feel with the book. Like, sure, you depicted that it's hard and also that some of the cases are just ridiculous, but they're burning for it. Like, they make it seem like, okay, sometimes it's shitty work, but we love it and it's important and we do it because it is important and we want to be a
Yeah.
part of it. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
would
something I
say,
really
like,
loved.
the actual work was never the problem. It was all the stuff surrounding that was the problem.
There were two, I think it's two quotes that are floating around the most. One really iconic, and I remember you had to write it on every signature sticker, and one that's a little more deeper. So I think everyone who read the book and not read the book but saw the quote, the protect the clitoris thing. Was that a
Yeah.
real thing?
Story was 100% true from the start to the finish. That is exactly what happened. That is exactly what that woman did. It was even a TCU horned frog that she was trying to deliver. I mean, it was exactly that. And I was not the one in the room. It was two of my friends. And it's like the iconic classic story that we all go back to because, like, it was so funny. So funny.
When was it? Like, in which year? And how often did you quote that person during your residency just
Oh
to.
my god, I don't even know. I think I'm trying to remember if I was it was either I think I was a second year. I think it was a second year.
Right.
So then they would
Okay.
have been third years who were interviewing her. But yeah, yes, it was yes.
And then there was one quote where someone, I don't want to spoil here too much, someone said, you can't be mad at like, how he gets over what you've broken or something like that. It became a really important quote for everyone who read the book. Why do you think so? And was it intentionally to have such an impact on especially that scene?
Actually, I don't know why that one resonated so much. It was pointed out to me later on, like after it had been published in the US, that it was a quote it was similar to something from Grey's Anatomy.
Hmm.
And I was like, I have literally not watched Grey's Anatomy for like 15 years or more. I mean, I was in college, so it's been more than that. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but it's been more than 15 years. And so I did not remember that at all. So I don't know if that was something that like stuck in my brain from Grey's Anatomy or it's just like, good ideas are good ideas. But I think that maybe the reason why it is sticking with people is because it's like Meredith and Derek kind of coded. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know why that's the one.
What I really liked about but the whole scene thing was like there was a lot of forgiveness in the book, or who should we forgive, or how, or maybe not.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with, okay, that's seems to be like more of my main theme there?
I think that that kind of just it came naturally because I knew that I wanted the rumors to be very impactful for her because I wanted to point out that it would affect her and not him. Like he would be seen as a, sympathetic kind of like, oh, this poor boy, he fell for this
Mhm.
harlot. And then she would be seen as somebody, who should be shunned. And I also wanted it to be something that she had already internalized in her past,
Mhm.
to make it obvious that, like, women are judged for the silliest things. The fact that her name is Sapphire and people immediately think she's a hooker or a stripper or a porn star or whatever, they just kind of immediately liken those two things together, and then she is judged accordingly. So, like, that's just doesn't happen to men. At least in my opinion, it
Eh,
doesn't.
yeah, no.
And so I wanted her to already be sensitive to these kind of things and then come in thinking she was starting fresh and it immediately hit her. And so I wanted her to be overly sensitive to it. And of course, she takes it out on the person that she loves the most. And then, her kind of coming to terms with the fact that, maybe she judged too quickly, too harshly, and she has to backtrack and like be like, I made a mistake. Because that's hard for people to do,
Mhm.
especially when they feel as if they've been wronged like their whole life. And, it's hard for somebody to be like, I'm sorry because I did the same thing that happened to me to you sort of thing. And I am a terrible person and please let me apologize. So that's kind of where I was coming with that. So the beginning part came first and then the end came naturally.
You had residency, no time for anything. Now you're a full-time real life practitioner. Like, and how did you find time to write a book, or how did you come up with writing books or stories? Because this is also your first published one.
Yes, that's my first, yes, traditionally published book. I get asked this question a lot, and I still don't really know the answer to it. Okay, so one is like I'm just very efficient. So like my my work, my like doctor work is, it takes up a portion of my time. And yes, like the charting and the excess stuff does take time, but I'm very quick at it. And so it takes less time for me than it does like my partners who make the same or like work the same amount of hours as I do. So that's part of it, but it's only a small part of it. I think a large part is just that like you really do as humans find time for the things that you like to do and want to do. And that was something that I wanted to do. That was like a lifelong dream. If I had been less risk averse, writing is what I would have done. So I had been writing since I was 16. I started writing like a fantasy. Like I started writing a romantasy before romantasy existed a million years ago. And I did that all through college and like all of my sorority sisters and stuff were like in love with my characters. And so I did that for a long time. And then I went to medical school and I had no time. So medical school and residency, I did not write at all because they're just truly that is when there is no time. Because I also had a small child. I had my daughter at the end of my second year of medical school. So she was 5 when I got out of residency. So, like, all of her hardest years were during those years. And then, of course, I had another baby in residency because I'm a crazy person. I had no time to write. And then as soon as I graduated, I started writing again. It, like, just immediately came back to me. It's like as soon as all the trauma was done, my creativity came back and I started writing again. And I kind of went back to that fantasy that I had been writing and then I got an idea for another book that I had, like I finished and it wasn't, it's a dystopian. So it's like a dystopian romance. And it wasn't time for that one. Like that was not popular at the time that I finished. And so then I was like, well, I'm going to write this book about doctors because this had been in my head already. And I was like, I need to get it down because I feel like this is a good story and I feel like people will resonate with it. That's kind of how I ended up there. And this book, once it started, like I couldn't stop. The story came very quickly to me and I wrote it very quickly. So I started it, I think I finished it in 2 months. It was
Oh,
while I was working full time. Yeah, I mean, my husband will be like, "What do you mean, how do you do it? All of your spare time goes to writing." I'm like, "Okay, I don't know." But that's a very long answer to that question.
Oh, it's great. But
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. If there's something, there's this saying like, if you want it, you will make time for it, and I think that's really valid. Like sometimes, okay, you cannot cancel on whatever, like
Yeah.
food or sleep, but if you really want it, you make time for it, and there's time for it somehow. So
Yes.
yeah. So the next book will be a dystopian romance, or what's next to come?
So the next book is Asher's Story. So Asher's Story is coming out April 14th in the United States, and I have the cover reveal should be coming soon. So yeah, I have it. I just haven't gotten the go ahead to to share it yet. But it's super cute. This one's a friends to lovers. He's an OBGYN obviously, and he's moved away, so he's somewhere else. And his best friend is an anesthesiologist, and they are, pranks and silliness galore. And he's, just silly. He's like the silly, non-serious guy, which is kind of his hang up. He feels like no one takes him seriously. And then she has a little bit of a traumatic past with like loss of her parents and stuff like that. And so she's not looking for anything serious in any relationship. She just wants fun. And so they become best friends, but then, they slowly start to open up to each other and things change a little bit. So that's Asher's story. And we have lots of gynecology shenanigans in the future.
I can't wait for the next banger. You can practice signing these on stickers
Yeah.
again. That's great. Yeah, I think also after reading the book, like who would I want to read about next? Was like, yeah, Asher. Asher
I know
deserves it.
everybody
Like,
loved Asher. Literally, like, I wasn't gonna write another one, and then everyone was like, "I need Asher's story," and I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm writing Asher's story." So I got bullied into it.
would you consider being a full-time writer in the future? Like your books were major success. You have this dystopia romance trilogy coming up,
Yeah,
made into movies and
exactly. Yeah,
stuff.
put all the things out in the universe. I mean, it's my dream job. So if I, became very successful, which the odds of that are so extraordinarily low, then yeah, I mean, I would absolutely do that. But it's, being a doctor is safer in terms of, steady income. And so it would have to be like I would have to be extraordinarily successful in order to quit my day job because I'm the breadwinner and so like in order to feed my children, I have to have a steady job. So I mean, yes, in a dream world, I would love to do that. It doesn't seem like it's possible, but who knows? Who knows what the future will bring?
Maybe to end on a funny note, is there any other funny story from your work life? Some funny case, some weird question that came up?
I mean, there's so many. And I've purged a lot of them. There's really silly ones, like ones where during COVID, I had women coming to me who told them that doctors told them that if they stayed cold and put blue light in their mouth, they'd never get COVID. Like stuff like that, like really random stuff. And then I have like the funny, sex questions basically, like because I'm the only doctor, like OBGYNs are the only doctor that women can ask these questions to, right? They're not going to ask their regular doctor about this. They're that
Duh.
old man. Like no one's gonna do that. So, I've had questions like, I had one woman who came to me and she was like, "So I discovered over the weekend that I don't have a gag reflex." Like, okay, continue, please. And she basically said that her boyfriend really liked obviously deep throating
Mhm.
and she's like, "I just want to make sure I'm not going to hurt myself because I don't have a gag reflex. When are you doing it? How long is he? I don't know. There are a lot of factors here."
Imagine, technically, like, yeah, I don't have a gag reflex, and it's not because, like, he's deep throating her, but because the
God,
length doesn't.
he's only this long. And there are actual medical studies about oropharyngeal perforation from blunt trauma. And I was like, oh my God, these poor
Good
researchers.
phrasing.
So then I was like, I want to put this in a book. So then one of my partners, her husband's an anesthesiologist, and I was like, I need him to tell me how big a dick would have to be in order to cut off air supply. What?
For
Like, what's in
research.
this report?
Okay.
Yeah.
You should stay a doctor because these stories are priceless.
It's gold. It really is. He actually gave
Um,
me 2. He was like, "I think 14 centimeters." I was like,
okay.
"Okay."
Don't want to know why you know that, but fine.
Yeah. Uh,
Thank you so much for the interview.
you're welcome.
I think everyone took something from that.
Yeah, very important information.
And for all the others, I will do this part in German. Lovesick ist ab heute raus. Also wenn ihr eine lustige, aber auch sehr süße Love Story mit sehr viel realen Informationen haben wollt, dann viel Spaß damit. And thanks again for the interview.
Yes,
It's nice
of
having you,
course.
and I can't wait for Ash's book.
Yay!